Welcome to the Scientific Applications Coaching 2, Endball Evaluation and Data Presentation by Swan. So the first section will be the problem. I will look to the problem identified and how I aim to help the performers improve upon the problem through intervention. Next, the methods and KPIs. I will explain the KPIs I've used to identify the performance issue that was most prevalent in the game. The result section. I will be able to see the results I got from notation analysis, stats that I got, and graphs and charts that were identified. Deeper problem lies a possible explanation as to why the problem was occurring, including a summary of everything at the end. The nutrition plan I will present was a meal plan I have created for the players to take on the day of the game. It will detail the macronutrients needed in their quantities for athletes to be able to play Endball. Final section will detail the approach I take to improving the athlete's performance problem that I identified, detailing the steps I will take to induce possible improvements. What is Endball? Endball is a multi-directional invasion game similar to sports like basketball and handball, where players must play around a court with the aim of passing or running to the end of the court without getting touched or tackled or the ball getting intercepted. That's how they will score, by getting it to the end of the court, and they will switch sides like each time. So the first slide. The problem I identified in both of the games I managed was it happened in both of the teams. Not only the one I chose, they didn't use the space on the pitch very well, meaning they didn't move into the available space, occupying already full space when opportunities arose, or they didn't get the ball when they managed to surge forward or was static throughout. The main part of this was following the ball like sheep, not breaking away to widen the play. The first aim was create a detailed notation analysis looking into the improvement of non-Bibs team through a game. The next one was to use my KPIs to identify possible constraints that could be applied to training to help the players improve. Next, design an intervention that will help players to work on their movement and the way they think about space during the game of Endball. Next, use the data I will collect to create graphs and charts that will help me understand the performance problem in the games. Then, help me design an intervention. Last, I will create a meal plan to get players ready and aid them during performance throughout the game, helping to facilitate possible improvement by giving them sufficient energy. I used a notation analysis to evaluate one of the games. This method allows for dynamic and complex situations to be analysed during competition, along with key tactical analysis being a major area this is used for. Gillette et al. 2009. This is why we used it to see what we needed to intervene and what intervention we needed to introduce. The KPIs I did use were positioning, static, movement, in space, tightly marked, pass, interception and catch. The definitions are on the right side, but subsections were made like velocity, action, pressure action and outcome to give these details. These were the results that I collected. The key data, when looking at velocity action, 9 out of 20 times the participants were moving when trying to get the ball. This was 45% of the time. This shows a possible lack of movement into the space or around the pitch. Was this a possible lack of motivation or confidence? 11 out of 20 times, 55% of the players were actually in space when receiving the ball, which may signify that they used the space effectively. However, 5 out of 11 times, 45.5% of the passes were either unsuccessful or the player got the ball and then lost the possession. 8 out of 20 times, which is 40%, of the outcomes were unsuccessful. 4 out of 20 the outcomes were successful, but then straight away possession was lost, meaning that 4 out of 20%, 40% of the outcomes were successful. The data on its own may not be enough. Graphs and charts have been created to put a large amount of information into an easy to put across format, which will find deeper understanding and insight, and points can be put across more effectively. That's by CDC in 2018. The first chart shows the velocity actions and their success or unsuccess. I believe that the key things in this graph shows that is when static, success was the highest, 2 more movements higher than when moving, due to the movement being riskier. However, movement's unsuccess was equal, showing that being static didn't mean it was better for past success. Players may lack concentration or effort. Also, with more static velocity actions, it shows that players weren't as willing to move into space or gamble for the ball. The next graph shows the success rates when pressure is applied. Key things to see here are that the movement success was highest when players were in space and static, showing that players went for easy options when passing not moving in space further up the court to score. Going to the side to make sure the pass was made. Tightly marked sections were also shown that players were moving or static. It would lead to unsuccess or success, but then lose possession, showing that players may not have used the best option, or the players on the bibs team defended very well. Charts 3 and 4 are pie charts, and these present the data in a different way, but these look at the sections on the court, which is this. And these show the success and unsuccessful movements. The charts help to show the areas which were more successful or unsuccessful for the non-bibs team, or some that held same values, e.g. 6 out of 6, position 6 had 2 successful and unsuccessful movements. Same for section 8. So this play may have gone straight down these sections here. To summarise, the results I got showed us that players were mostly getting successful movement and passes when they were static, so barely any movement. It showed that unsuccessful movements were the same for static and moving velocity actions. The success positions and most unsuccessful positions were played through 6 and 8 on the pitch. Non-bibs may have stunted their own success by making too many successful passes when static. This is good for statistics, however, a deeper look tells us that they are not taking the risk to go forward, passing sideways for safety, and in some cases losing the ball when not being pressured and static. This could even be considered a constraint, because this happened 5 times on performance, and it doesn't help them move up the field. Staying still, and the main problem identified was the lack of movement in games. Another constraint could be the equal amount of times unsuccessful movements were made, and in the static and moving sections, which was 4, might be the initial pass made to the players that need improving along with the movement made. A stronger in-phase attraction in both lateral and longitudinal directions was identified, Liete et al. 2014. This means that in basketball they found when defensive pressure was applied, more lateral and longitudinal movements were applied by players to break out of the pressure. We may be able to see this in our data as when playing through sections 8 and 6, which applies to the centre and then going out wide, working laterally. At this point in the game, players play long balls from 8 to 2 to break press and gamble into space, which is crucial. This ended in 1 success and 1 unsuccess. For my meal plan, I based it off myself. As a 75 kilogram male and who is 175 centimetres, I based the meal plan upon this and then compared myself to a performer and used similar data that they could use. A male should averagely eat 2,500 calories. That's from the NHS in 2020. And I managed to get 3,562. This is loading up on carbs for high intensity workout. Some athletes may need 5 to 12 kilograms for replenishment. This is Yukon drop in 2011, but this is mainly for elite athletes. So I used so many calories so that they could be burnt throughout the day and get the correct, a lot more energy than needed. The 220 to 19 gave me my max heart rate of 201. And this in comparison to data collected shows that 187 was the highest value of someone similar to me. So the exercise is moderate to high intensity. The natural dietary requirements are 45 to 65% for carbs, 20 to 35% for fats, and 10 to 35% for protein. Out of the 282 grams collected altogether, fat, protein and carbs, 50.6% was carbs, 28.1% was protein, and 21.3% was fats. All aligned with these requirements set. The reason the carbs are so high is because the low glycemic index carbs may provide a slow release source of glucose before prolonged strenuous exercise. This was shown with porridge. That's by Thomas in 1991. Also, it helps glycogen resynthesize straight after games. Rancordis et al. 2017. This is showed by potatoes for heaters and at half-time replenishing energy. Proteins were so high for muscle repair, especially after exercise. That's by for chicken fajitas, and also helps for adaptation. That's by Ivy in 2004. The fats were used for ATP in low to moderate exercise, but may be needed for the stoppages in play for quicker just bursts of energy. other than carbohydrates, which last a longer time. That's by Turcotte in 1999. And I've decided to use the constraints-led approach. The constraints-led approach is a coaching style that takes techniques, skills and tactics from a game situation, puts them into small drills, lets players figure out how to solve their way around the constraints applied to practice. That's by UK Coaching in 2020. Possible constraints could be equipment, rules, pitch or court sizing, instructional constraints, frequency of feedback, or the number of players, which would mean overload. That's by Davies et al. In 2003. And Newell in 1986 created this diagram, and which shows the constraints-led approach and will lead us to let us look at task orientation. The constraints-led approach is important to coaching because coaches must be seen as environment architects. They manipulate an environment to facilitate improvement and performance and cognitive thinking from the athletes. The approach was born from a theory of ecological dynamics, where athletes and teams were seen as complex adaptive systems. The systems have many parts and form coordinated patterns that could be shaped and moulded by the environment. The coordination patterns in teams and players may emerge under specific constraints applied by the coaches, supported by sports scientists. This considered foolish in the 1990s or 1990, but now is key to high-level sport. Constraints shaped emergent behaviours in moving systems. Athletes' environment forms understanding of performance and development of said athletes, not just their personal qualities. Gibson in 1979, 86 and 2014 said environmental properties allow affordances for players within a team and the information sources in performance will let them allow certain actions. When learning experience and knowledge, athletes will become better at realising potential variables and find ways to work around these, using their perception from experience from knowledge to recognise variables that apply certain actions to work around these. That's by Renshaw in 2019. The intervention I came up with was that teams could overload, have four defenders on 3 attackers, or 4v2 to induce thinking about space and how to play when the odds are against them. They could use the wings only, lay out cones and tell the attackers they must use the wings and play the ball from 8-6 or 8-4 again, and use the space, and if the pass isn't on, they shouldn't make it, and make space for a better pass. Players will have a limited time on the ball, so 5 seconds to force quicker thinking and movement and space, always wanting the ball. The use of smaller area to find space in confined areas if the team is pressing, and how they will break out of that. I could use the idea of making space to have a points game where players will be against defenders and must run into cones that may identify space, having to run in there to ask for the pass but can only spend 3 seconds in the square. This makes players always be on the lookout for passes and then always look for available space in the right place to get the pass quickly. May take away possible spaces to increase the difficulty. Make sure to add defenders, possibly upping them after every minute to add pressure onto the team on the space-making team. So, to conclude, I would like to further develop research in this area by using coach and athlete experiences, blending them together to gain further insight into thoughts and feelings of the way they will prepare and approach games/training, using this qualitative data to see what setup of support staff would be the best to help the team prepare and thrive in the sport. Research into how athletes' input on sessions and personal reflection will help to aid their own development and relationship with the coach by working together to create more effective training plans. Doing further research into these subjects will help to broaden the horizons of possible future research after this, as well as greater understanding of more into the behaviours and nature of these athletes and coaches. And there is the reference list.